Check it out, y'all.
It's over 9,000!
I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And no time! Next number. 1472 is the scene. Cutthroats and locs and plenty dope. Can you cope?
I said, please don't be too nice.
Showing a student body slammed from inside the main office of a Louisiana middle school has 2 officers facing serious charges.
Officer putting a student in a headlock before pushing him down and then later using a taser.
Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head.
Sir, you've been charged by indictment with the offense of capital murder of multiple persons.
Charleston shooting suspect Dylan Storm Roof got a free meal from police on his way to jail. They went to Burger King.
Head, you know, the way you put the hand over.
Hey, why you doing him like that?
Like, don't hit their head and they've just killed somebody.
She was arrested after a traffic stop, but a few days later, she was dead.
Steele was shot by police during a traffic stop over what she says was a broken taillight.
Tonight, there are protests over another deadly police shooting of an unarmed man after...
A dedicated EMT with dreams of becoming a nurse.
Say her name!
Trayvon Martin,
Alton Sterling, to Philando Castile, to Tamir Rice, to so many others. I literally cannot mention them all.
I said you can take the hand away, okay?
One of them puts his forearm around Garner's neck. More police join in, pinning him to the ground as he cries out.
I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in the car.
Mama!
Get up, get in the car right.
He then threw her to the ground and repeatedly punched her as she tried to block his blows.
Police are out of sight, pointing their guns. You can hear Kinsey trying to explain he's a healthcare professional. The man on the road next to him is his autistic patient. Police shoot, hitting Kinsey in the leg.
And I'm standing there, I'm like, sir, why did you shoot me? And his words to me, he said, I don't know.
It's just a few bad apples. Has some real problems.
And the evidence here does not support charging police officer Daniel Pantaleo or any other officer with a federal criminal civil rights violation.
And I cannot tell you how many people were shot by police in the United States last month, last year, or anything about the demographics.
It's okay, I'm right here at you.
But he was killed on the streets.
Moments after hearing the decision, Eric Garner's daughter stormed out of the federal courthouse.
Federal cops don't want to prosecute. Nobody wants to hold nobody accountable.
I said you can take the hand away, okay?
When people are asking me about Black Lives Matter, for instance. Black Lives Matter, the sentiment, I can get down with. Black Lives Matter, the organization, I cannot.
And why is that?
Because they are not for the same thing. Whoever the 2 women are who are the founders of Black Lives Matter, the organization, they are trained Marxists. Said it with their own mouth.
Myself and Alyssa in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
So what is their goal? What do they want?
Well, what do Marxists want? They want to topple the current structure. They have their use, so speak, they're useful idiots.
Looters make off with bicycles and backpacks.
That create chaos to topple whatever structure is in place.
Watch this dude slip and fall.
So that they can come in, fill the vacuum. What do they do with the useful idiots? They dispose of them because they are rebellious in nature and thus will topple the power structure that's in place then.
Who's responsible for allowing the violence and destruction to happen?
After 5 nights of violence, federal and state officials now have a better idea of who may be behind it. Attorney General William Barr.
The voices of peaceful protest are being hijacked by violent radical elements.
Black Lives Matter!
Dozens of people gathered at Archer Park in McAllen for a Black Lives Matter march and vigil Saturday evening.
We know that there are people here who know that this is a just right and apparent cause, so we felt like there could be no problem with doing this.
Well, this just in from McAllen, a man caught on camera with a chainsaw around protesters today.
We're here in Laredo, Texas. My name is Cesar Vanoye Diaz. I am joined by several other friends from the community who would like to voice their opinion about the Black Lives Matter movement and the aftermath of the George Floyd case in Minnesota. Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out with us. This is the first time, and I know this is nerve-wracking for some of us, for myself included, the context in which we're in politically, not just as a community in Laredo, but as a country. There's coronavirus going on. There's police brutality that's a topic. As Laredoans, like, what do you feel is, what's the attitude when we see KGNS comments, we see LMT comments, and you see like Facebook is flooded with people either supporting it, getting super political. There's violent images of what is going on around the country. There's a two-sided argument going off all over the place, but I feel like there's a middle ground here that we're not exploring, and I feel like because we were in quarantine and all this stuff, like we've been living our lives through our computers basically. At least I have. Like my phone and my computer are just like my entertainment. All my information was basically Gordiloca, LMT, and KGNS, and then looking at the comments and looking at my friend's Facebook posts, and I was just like, dude, this is like tiring. And seeing people jump onto stuff, like I jumped on the black square, and then immediately somebody was like, don't do it, like it's throwing off the algorithm. And I got super confused. I was like, I'm just trying to help. I don't know. I don't know how this is. I'm trying to find the answers, but we're so quick to move, and this thing's so rapidly changing that it's easy to say, oh, that guy is a racist, or that guy, like, cancel this person and that, and it's like, let's listen. It's so easy. Like I see people like, screw you, I don't need to listen to you because you don't have the same attitude as me. And even I have done it, like, where like, oh, out your Trump friends, and then I'm like, wait, the last thing we need right now is to separate ourselves from people that don't agree with us. I'm not saying anything against it, but I don't think it's conducive to the dialogue that we must be having, because we've kicked the can down the road for so long about racism in America. This country was founded on racism, and as soon as we accept that, that's when we start moving forward. We're the gateway to America, and these same people that are saying these things against this movement or this attitude, this shared passion that we have to make things equal for everybody, is kind of laughing at the American image too, because it's on us. The people that come from Latin America up through Laredo, they're looking at us as a land of opportunity. And the first thing we approach people with chainsaws. There was a guy with a chainsaw in McAllen. That's the border. That's a border city. Those are like our brothers and sisters too. And I think the image that we're showing the world is important. And I think that's why these types of things are necessary.
Those guys are actually doing something good, man. I mean, the good thing that I see from them is that they're not, they're not rioting. It's a protest. That is a peaceful protest. I'm okay with that. Talking about Black Lives Matter, I'll be honest, a few years back, I was so against it. I was just 100% against it. Because, as you all know, quite a few years back in Dallas, there was a Black Lives Matter movement. They requested Dallas police to come and help them out to secure the streets so that they can march to downtown. Even though it's a protest against police brutality, they request the police department to help them out so that they can go through this protest. Well, the police department's always going to go and help you out, no matter what. So what they do, they secure downtown, they shut down certain streets, and guess what? A black man comes and shoots, these Dallas officers, kills them. What pissed me off a lot is that one of them was, he wasn't white, he was Hispanic. They're trying to target white police officers. He killed my partner, one of my old partners. And that's why I had been so against Black Lives Matter. Because to me, it was it was targeting, white police officers. And one of them was a Hispanic officer, former military as well, had some tours overseas. He literally put his life in the front lines for this country. He came back to his community in Dallas, Fort Worth, and he gets killed by by a black person, and I was so against it. I just couldn't understand why people would be pro Black Lives Matter, and I was very pro Blue Lives Matter, and I was very pro All Lives Matter, because then I was saying to myself, well, I'm Hispanic, it's my life too. It's not just black people who are suffering. Everyone is suffering here. I want people to know that just because this officer, and he happens to be white, the person that put the knee on top of George Floyd, I want people to know that a lot of officers don't approve of that. Because before being an officer, we're humans. We know right from wrong. It's very simple. And then there's bad people who know wrong and they still want to do it. Y'all got to remember, police officers, they come from society. They're humans. So they were recruited from the society. And we all make mistakes. One thing I do want to say is that I really don't think this officer went to work, put his badge on, and said, I'm going to kill someone today. I really don't think he had that in his mind. A lot of other things play some factors into this unfortunate event. But it just comes down to this: he fucked up really bad. Like, that's what it is. And a lot of officers, they don't approve of that.
Yeah,
and
misconduct's on
A history.
yeah, but have you looked at maybe his commendations? How much good did he actually do throughout his whole career?
To be honest, like, you can do.
How many passes are you going to give someone?
Yeah, like, you can do.
Everyone.
You can walk.
Exactly.
Let me pick your brain on this. To be quite honest, you can edit this out. I don't give a damn what he thought about when he put on the badge. I don't think there's any way you can justify it. Let's be honest. There's no way you can go around in circles and be like. And I do agree that there are good officers out there. I know a lot of them. I've worked so many jobs. I just know a lot of people. And yes, there are some good people out there, but that's not the point. That's not what this movement's about right now. It's about the injustice. It's about the systematic racism. That I think that's what people are protesting. Not the good cops. Yeah, there's good people, just like there's bad people.
Right.
But for this was a tipping point. There's been so many people that have died in vain, and I think people just had enough. Right. And I can go into detail about that. That's what I did research on this past couple of days. But
that's good. That's good that you did the reading.
And the more research I did, I'll say this and I'll wrap it up. It's sad, man. Like, the more you dig, the more names that come up, you just realize, like, hey, the system isn't working for most people. And imagine being in that family, imagine being that parent, imagine being that father, that mother, whatever the case. The system's kind of broken, and I don't care how many points people can get. It's just me.
Murder's murder. That's what.
That's what it is. Like I said, I really don't think he went that day to work saying, "Hey, I'm gonna kill someone today," but he did, and that's what we're saying. Like, he messed up really bad, and now he's paying for the consequences. The people ask, you know what? Hey, what about the remaining officers? Well, you know what? Let's look into that too. So guess what? Now they went into investigation. They got arrested as well. So everyone's got a charge, and they will pay. They will pay for the consequences.
I think officers should be accountable to their misconduct. I worked in restaurants, and if you treat a customer wrong, well, there's consequences. Yeah, you get in trouble and you get let go. And I think that should be the same all around. I feel like if you have a certain amount of misconduct or abuse of force, that should be a big factor of maybe you should be behind a desk, or you should be other consequences. You said it.
I agree with the consequences, and I think a lot of people do. This is how all of this started. Just no one being accounted for what happened. If it wasn't for it being recorded, like, that cop would have never served time. He wouldn't have even got fired. Yeah, imagine what doesn't get seen. Like, things that happen behind. Like, I've had some incidents where officer threatened to pull his weapon on me because he thought I stole my mom's truck. He thought I stole my mom's truck because he ran the plates and the last name was my mother's last name. She got remarried, and it's like, dude, like, he's like, your ID doesn't say that. But before he even ran my ID to see I've never been in trouble, I've never had any tickets, he just jumped to the assumption that I stole the truck. And my mom wasn't answering the phone. She finally answered, it all got settled out. Guy didn't even apologize, just jumped in his cruiser and left. Didn't even give me the ticket for the reverse light that was out that he stopped me for. They just need to be held accountable, like, whether, like you said, they get fired, they get arrested, multiple offenses. I understand, like, the job is tough. Sometimes you have to make split-second decisions. You don't know. You really don't know. But you can't just be startled just because you see a big, tall black man, like, and be like, oh, he's probably going to attack me. It's like, then you probably weren't meant for the job, dude.
Like, how do you expect someone to act right and, give the control of the police officer to lose, their goal?
It's like, I saw
something on social media. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Hey, I have the mic. I have the mic. I saw something that said civilians are expected to be held accountable for their decisions in emotional and high situations, but like officers aren't. Like officers have training to have those situations. So like if I'm a civilian, I'm fighting somebody, I hit him, he falls, busts his head, dies, I'm gonna serve time. Officer loses his cool, thought he had a weapon, fires his weapon, kills a guy, no punishment because he's a cop. Like I think that's what a lot of people are tired of.
What do you feel about police brutality going on around the country?
I feel like I might be the one that's like, I have some problem. I worked with an organization called Move Texas, and I was the issue advocacy fellow. And because of Corona, our assignment was to do a crap ton of research. And so we started with vote by mail because how else are we going to vote? How else are we going to, participate in this democracy if not by voting? One of the most simplest forms of protests that you could do is put your vote in. We moved to climate justice, and of course we landed on of more specifically the jail system, how that functions. But my former boss, I spoke at the protest and I was like, dude, I need help. I need information. And I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge two truths. One, a lot of people don't know how government functions. And so that is detrimental to our, creating a society that is strong, that is fortified by the voice of the people. We have a democracy, and I don't think that people really understand what that means. I think that we are so keen to throwing around certain labels, liberal, conservative, without really understanding not only the history of it, but the meaning of it. And so that's one of the things. The second thing, and I'm speaking fast because I want to make sure that, we all get a chance to say something, but the institution of police the system works just fine. The system works the way it has been supposed to work. You went from slave patrols to, Jim Crow laws, to police brutality, to mass incarceration. So for people to say the system's not working, the system's broken, no. It's working the way it's intended. And not to say that I have a problem with police, I don't, my posit is, if our world functions the way that it's supposed to, if people are fed, if people are housed, if people, are mentally balanced, if people have access to healthcare, if people are truly allowed to be who they are, LGBTQ plus, if those small, bubbles of minorities were able to live their lives without discrimination, without violence, and this is really controversial, but would we need police? I mean, of course, police have always been around. It's always been a system. We've had, since the Dark Ages, knights. But I mean, that they function to protect the property of their lords, not necessarily the people. For me, it's rooted in control. And so this, in my mind, and not in a conspiracy theory, but this enforces the elites to keep rising and the poor people to stay poor. You put them in jail, how do they pay their fines? You tell me to get a job. Okay, it's Corona. I don't know if anyone knows that. Like, I'm protesting because I have the fucking time to do it. Yeah. But it's just a cycle that one needs to be addressed and two completely needs to be reformed. And that happens by educating. That happens by people understanding how government works, and to avoid saying, why do you want to talk about politics? That's so boring. Why do you want to talk about the government, Alyssa? Yeah, and I mean, that's not fulfilling. That's not moving us anywhere. These kinds of discussions, this kind of like democracy, if it works the way we need it to work, we will put that effort in. And that's why people are protesting. That's why people are out there. because there's a system that has worked its way and it just needs to be changed. It needs to be reformed. It needs to truly be put back into the hands of the people.
Where do you feel that this criticism is coming from within our community? You know, I've seen some protests and you just hear people like, you hear the honks, you know, pónganse a jalar, like, you know, just something pinche huercos mocosos, like it just, it's always attacking their age and it's attacking, I mean, it's ridiculous, but they're attacking somebody just doing something.
It attacks the fact that they think there's no black people here.
Yeah, and it takes away from the discussion.
Yeah.
We say, yeah, that happened already. It's done with. And I keep hearing this when people talk about Black Lives Matter is racism a real thing in Laredo? It's not affecting us. There's a few people. It's not our problem.
I think it's ignorance. It's individuals that find it easier to criticize. And if, in my opinion, if you don't, it's okay to have opinions. It's okay to think that maybe this is not the right way to go about it. But if you don't offer solid solutions, thank you. If you don't offer solid solutions, then just stay quiet. You know, your opinions are not important if they're not going to solve anything. I think it's just ignorance for the most part, and let's face it, you know, idiots. You know, it's easier to troll and criticize and bash someone, especially they're trying, you know, to stand up for what they believe in. And I think you should give credit to the people that are actually speaking up, because it takes a lot of courage for any individual. It doesn't matter where you come from, you know, especially here in Laredo. Like, yeah, we might live in a bubble and in a community that's mostly Hispanic, but to think that what's going on, Black Lives Matter, doesn't affect us, it does. You know, let's paint a picture. If one day you decide to move somewhere else, how many people are going to criticize or, you know, discriminate against you for being Hispanic? It's really easy to stay behind a keyboard or a phone screen and talk shit. You know, but that's just my opinion.
If somebody never leaves, how are they ever going to know how it's like anywhere else? And that race thing is such a big thing too. Like, you don't feel racism until you leave. Here you'll never feel it, unless you're something else, unless you're not Hispanic.
And the thing is that I really don't think you feel the racism here, because like how you said, you know, you grew up with them, and to you never saw color. You know, I think, you know, you guys were friends and that's it.
Can I just make a small point?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things I've learned is, like, you know, words have power. And so one of the things that I've been reading about more so is, like, not seeing color. Like, it's important to see color. You know, it's important to see his struggles because of his color. Right. And not in a corrective way, but, like, to maybe, like, change the way we use our words. Like, I see who you are. I know your skin color, but I'm not going to judge you or make you feel discriminated in any way. And that's just to say, because my mom, half black woman, is like, I don't see color. And it's like, how do you not see the struggles of your people? Like, that, to say that is to say that your struggles don't exist, and it's like a privilege kind of thing. My mom and her sister and an older brother were born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Currently, they all live here in Laredo. Long story short, you know, half black. To say that my mom or my tias are not here in Laredo personally is hurtful. And of course, they don't know the full black experience. I don't know, I can't even speak to the black experience. I don't consider myself a black woman, because that would be taking away from a black woman, you know, who has those struggles of having darker skin and having curlier hair. You know, so I don't like to say that, but to speak on my family and my friends, who I've received plenty of messages, you know, heartbroken, saying, I can't believe people are saying we're not here in the city. I'm right here. It feels like I don't exist. And so you have to really consider how our words maybe don't have that much weight when they're said, but they do, especially when you say, no hay negros aquí porque estás hablando de eso, ¿qué te importa? And it's like, we're here. We're right here. It matters to us, because in some way, shape, or form, that potentially could have been, you know, our brothers, our sisters, you know, our family members that that go through that possibly in our city. And we've heard of a case that a gentleman was shot over 70 times, you know, and couldn't have been identified. That could have been, that's just like the main thing. That could have been someone I know, that could have been my friend, that could have been my family, that could have been someone in our community. And so just to kind of speak to that, Black people are here in Laredo, and this is a conversation that small cities need to be involved in, because we are growing. You know, there's diversity. We're one of the largest ports in the country. And so to say that is just, personally, it's defunct, in my opinion.
It's not validating your existence to say that you're not here. And because even if there was only one person here, that's enough. Even if it was half, it doesn't matter.
Some people say it, there's only 10 Black people here, and they actually mean it. Like, they really think there's only, that there isn't any, or there's one, or there's two, or that just that one Black guy. Like, it's like, no, there's quite a few of us, and because of the schools as well, they're here for school, they're here for work, they're here for anything, family. They got married to someone from here. I know plenty of Black people in Laredo. You guys just don't look. We're just not out being loud and rowdy the way you expect Black people, like the way Black people are portrayed on TV. Like, that's what Laredo people think Black people are like. And it's like, no, dude, like, we're just chilling. Like, we're out here, but just don't think we're not here. We're not realizing that, like, there's people out there that don't really care about us the way they say they do. They just want that quick picture. It's like what I told my wife, like, we have to have this conversation, because so many people in the past just ran from it out of fear. Like, for example, my mom, she was upset when I told her that I wanted to go to the protest. She really was upset. She said no, because things are crazy right now, and you don't know how people are going to react, and you're one of the few, and you will be targeted. And the problem is, people aren't crazy just right now. That target on my back is always there. Like, people are afraid for me right now that have never even given me the, like, time of day. It's like, dude, why are you worried about me now? Like, this problem is always here, like, not just right now. And I'm hoping all this causes change, because I don't want to have to, well, I'm still going to have it with him, because you still have to have it. But later on down the line, having that conversation with my kids, with my son, telling him, like, hey, this is how it is. This is how life is going to be for you. When you go to the store with your mom, do not grab any toys. If you want a toy, you tell her, I want that one. Because the minute you grab that toy and LP is walking back and forth, because those little Black kids are running back and forth, and you grab a toy and you don't tell your mom, they're going to go to your mom and tell her things. And it is frustrating. It's annoying. It's tiring. And explaining to them that, hey, your friends are going to ask you questions like, hey, why is your skin darker? And we do get it. We're walking somewhere and, mira, mami, mira, papi, like they're darker. Or like little kids just stay staring at me like, whoa. Like, it's like, yeah, like they've never seen a Black guy before.
In talking about that, you were talking about behavior of how there's a misconception of how Black people, I feel crazy saying this, like, there's a way that people expect you to behave. I've had friends that told me that they had to be prepped by their parents. They're looking for you. Don't have your hands in your pockets. If you get stopped by the police, you have to have your ID and your registration and everything really close, obvious to see, so that way they don't misconstrue it for anything else.
Not personally here in Laredo. I did live in Wisconsin for a little while, and there, you know, my mom did have to explain to me how racism worked and what I should look out for. And, you know, it came to a point where several times she had to come into the school and tell them, like, she's Hispanic and you're telling her how to act and you're expecting these things from her. And I mean, it's just like, she told me her stories, you know, she told me what it was like to experience life in Laredo as a half Black woman and then life in Louisiana as a half, you know, Hispanic woman, and, you know, the kind of like nuances that happen there and how, you know, from here to there you had to act, you know, your race. Here in Laredo, we have to act our race, because if not, you know, we're subject to, why don't you know how to speak Spanish, or why don't you know how to speak English? And there's just so much judgment and so much, you know, heaviness on expectations, and that kind of puts like the psychological thing into your head that, well, shit, you know, I have to be careful with how I speak because it might, you know, piss someone off because it doesn't subscribe to their expectations. And that's heavy psychological, you know, like constantly questioning and constantly being hyper aware of your actions. And I don't think that's a way for anyone to live, you know, for any race especially. And that's just, you know, what I've seen. And obviously, again, I repeat, I don't pretend to know the Black experience. I don't even pretend to know the whole Hispanic experience, because it's just been so, you know, mixed around that I don't even know like what I should say, you know, like, so to have people pin this on you, like, you look this way, you should act this way, and for it not to represent who you are is really frustrating.
I know, Scott, some people have told you before that you're not really Black. But how does that work?
Since high school, man, pretty much we'd be in class or playing sports. Never really liked playing sports too much. It was like an authority thing. I didn't like. It was cool. I tried them out. I played with you a couple times, but the whole being told what to do, the way they would tell us to do it, it was just like, nah, I'm good. And the fact that they would single me out sometimes and they expect me to be better than the rest just because I look Black, and it's like, nah, I'm good, dog. Like, I'm not gonna play for you. So, and then to go to the locker room and be like, hey, Scott, you should be doing better. But it's cool. You're not really Black. It's like, what do you mean I'm not really Black? My dad's Black. Yeah, but your mom's Mexican, so you don't really count. It's like, yeah, all right, say what you want to say, but you're not going to get followed at Walmart the way I get followed. For the longest time, I never really talked to my wife about it, like what I went through, until we started going to the stores together. When we started going to the stores together, it got to the point where she would take a while in like the makeup aisle, and I would just go walk around. But then I just lost the need to want to do that, and I started staying with her, and I asked her, I was like, hey, I need you to like, hurry up, man. You're taking a little bit. She's like, why? What happens? I'm like, watch. I'm like, they're going to call loss prevention. And they'll call a spill over the PA, and then 2 people will show up and just keep walking back and forth in the aisle. And I tell her, like, hey, look, he's going to keep walking back and forth until we leave. Sure enough. And they'll follow us all the way to checkout. Never fails. We went to Walmart last week, and we were in the self-checkout, and we were about to scan the stuff. And as she's scanning, I look back, and my family is half Mexican. I live with my Mexican family here in Laredo. So I know all the little, like the little gestures and all the little things that we do down here. And I look back, and one of the ladies is doing it to another one, and they're like watching us scan every single item. I look a couple people down. This dude's skipping stuff and just throwing it in the car. I'm like, yo, you're looking at the wrong people. Like, you're really looking at the wrong people. And I understand that you don't see people like me too often, but I've lived here since, I want to say, 3rd grade. Yeah. Going back and forth. Laredo, Chicago, and never changed, man. I have a lot of cop friends. They do their job. I've never had a problem with them. We grew up together. They've always stepped in when I needed to. Even to this day, when I have a problem, I give them a call, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Is this right? And this and that. And they'll tell me if it is or if it isn't. Like, and I'm glad they're the ones getting into the force so they could check whoever, like, you know, you get me? Like, because there's always going to be bad apples in every group. I'm just glad that we're finally getting people within the system that we know that they're going to take care of us. Like, they're going to step in and do the right thing when it's necessary.
And you know what? And sometimes, you know, maybe your friends that probably would tell you, like, hey, you know what? Like, you know, you're not completely Black, so you're cool with us. But right now, when you were expressing your emotions and, you know, your experiences, like, you know, I sympathize with you, man. Like, I've never heard anyone actually talk about it that way. You know, my when I lived in Dallas, you know, my friends that I have, you know, friends that are white, Black, Asians, you know, they're pretty pro-Black, and so most of them that I knew, they're not a mix. So then, for example, right now that you're saying that, you know, you have you're half Mexican, half Black. Going through that, you know, through those experiences, I think that's very sad, to be honest. I've never heard anyone talk about that, you know.
My mother-in-law as well didn't believe it was like a problem until I explained to her how it was, and she still didn't believe it. And I told her, what would you do if your grandson goes through all these things? Is that what it's going to take for you to believe it? Because it's happening. I was like, I understand. I'm just married in. Your son-in-law, I'm not really your son, but just understand that your grandson, because of me, is going to go through all of these things. And she came around. She understands now. And that's the good thing. We need to get it out there. We need to educate people because they don't understand. When you see ignorance, check it. That's all you got to do. That's all we're pretty much asking. Same thing in the force, stuff like that. You see something, step up, man. I understand there's a whole like brotherhood where like you really don't want to say anything. But there's just some things that you can't let go. You shouldn't let go. It's just not, it's not the right thing to do. In other words, you know right from wrong. In that case, it's a human life. Could be your brother, cousin. I have a cousin in the force. He's the one that gave me this hat. And I stress about him because I have family on the other side protesting. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between protesting and rioting and looting, or being a good cop, or just being a racist. Or not even necessarily a racist, just you just want to hurt somebody. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be a white cop. It just be somebody that just doesn't really like people and wants to take advantage of his position. So just educate friends, family, everybody. You see somebody that's posting nonsense, don't argue. You argue makes you seem wrong, because we're always gonna look wrong. If you stoop down to someone's level and you want to try to fight them, don't. Instead, educate them. Show them. If they don't want to listen to you, they don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Just don't associate yourself with someone like that. You have no need to.
Do you feel there's something substantial coming from that?
Something that I did talk to my buddy. Again, he works for Dallas. You know, I'm out here in Laredo. I worked, in El Cenizo Police Department. I became the chief there for quite a few years there. So, I do a lot of, I talk with a lot of people from different police departments just so we can gather more information and share, experiences. I told him, I said, hey, remember that ethics course that we took in the police academy? Like, it wasn't that long. Like, it was just like a few hours long. He's like, yeah, I think we should focus on talking to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. See, we can increase those hours on the ethics. I mentioned something, sympathy, man. Maybe we should have a class of sympathy that's going to last, days. And because you see a lot of bad things on a daily basis that to you, it just kind of becomes kind of normal, And I'm obviously generalizing because not every officer feels like that. But
do you think, second question to that, do you think that people should have free mental health care checks at least once a month, just to keep them in check?
That would be great.
Like, you've gone through a lot of shit.
Oh, yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of crazy shit, and I understand it.
I think a lot of officers also started seeing things from a different perspective. Because after this, like, I also saw things from a different perspective. And, a lot of officers were like, man, this is very sensitive. That at some point, like, it just, it becomes normal to us to see, all these crimes happen. And then, you have, George Floyd, die. So it's like, oh, it's like whatever, it's another dead person because you see him every day, But I think this video and the movement that the good movement that people are doing, I think it started waking up a lot of people, and it started people who were just pro Blue Lives Matter, that they only bleed blue, that's it. I think they started seeing things from a different perspective, and I noticed from a lot of officers that I don't even know. A lot of them were saying positive things. So I just wanted to make it clear that, again, not every officer is like that. Not every officer represents that.
I'd like to ask, what's your personal view on what do you feel is going to happen with police reform? Do you feel like it's a goal that is doable, that we can possibly achieve in some way?
I just don't think there's going to be that, mental health check every month. I really don't see it happening, but I think a lot of officers are now talking at least to themselves. Some were like, hey, you know what, we have to voice our opinions. And that's literally what we're doing right now here. We all are voicing our opinions. And as long as, we're civil about this, then I'll understand your point of view, but if, for example, if you're very aggressive, I'll be honest, man, I don't like to fight. I don't like to argue. All right, dude, I'm done. I'm just going to turn around and just not listen to you. But it would have been nice to see your point of view from, your perspective. And if you stay calm, then I would love to listen to you more. And that way we can share ideas, and I can understand your point of view, and you can understand my point of view. And I think that's the only way we're gonna continue moving forward.
With all that's going on, obviously, I think it's really important to talk about, self-care, I think that, machismo culture very much plays into how men cope with their feelings here. And so a lot of the comments that you see on Facebook are from angry men that don't really understand what's going on. And so, just to take care of yourself and realize that, yes, you're more than welcome to state your opinion, but the First Amendment doesn't protect you from what you get back. Words are very powerful. You can't say that someone is acting like an ape and not expect someone to say it, to feel that racism. There are terms, there are words that just spark controversy, and it's very important to, speak with grace, consider the people around you. And just aside from that, just be a part of your community, open your eyes to what's going around you, take some time and learn, away from Facebook. Don't rely on, people teaching you or, giving them the responsibility to educate you. That's your responsibility as an adult. That's your responsibility as a community member. And I just think that we need to approach things with a very open mind. There's Red Wing United, who has these really interesting proposals for our police force, and I really hope that the city of Laredo looks into it, considers it, from every approach. I think it's very important to have, a roundtable discussion with different types of people in our community to really have the input to, if our life isn't going to be no police, okay, fine, but how do we make it better? How do we make it, so that these people aren't explicitly targeted? Because they are. Of course, no one wakes up with the mentality like, I'm gonna, cause someone harm, but, the situation triggers a lot of either repressed feelings or even feelings that are on the surface, and that trauma and that anger turns into action, and people need to keep that in check. Police department is still a very democratic thing, and people don't realize that either. We have a say into what happens with our police forces. We have a say with what happens in our city governments. And we can only tweet, we can only Facebook, we can only, Instagram so much until it becomes void. Yeah, so, just be careful with your words, because words can turn into action, as we've seen with the current administration. And, think with grace, act with grace, and let's build a better tomorrow, because I have kids, What is this world going to look like for them 10 years from now, 15 years from now when they're in high school, I don't want them to keep reliving this repetition of history. It's exhausting. And unfortunately, because so many folks don't have the opportunities that most people have to get educated, it's gonna keep happening. And that's terrifying to think that, what if we do have a civil war? Are we gonna have to teach people that they're wrong again, that racism is bad, and that, these institutions that have oppressed us and controlled us for so long are, doing what they're supposed to? Or there's a lot to unpack, definitely.
No, and this is, I thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this. I know it's very informal and new, but you know what, I think this allows a little bit of the tension to be released within the community. Like, anybody who sees this is gonna be like, yo, I feel that, and you know what, he made a good point, and I think we can all sometimes find some agreement in like, yo, it's fucked up. And
some people will relate to every single person.
Yeah. And that's what I'm so thankful for you guys doing this. I know this is a crazy idea, but if I was a kid and I saw adults in my community talking about stuff that my parents were probably neglecting, I would love that, because then I would take that same energy home and be like, hey, I saw this video, no, que la chingada, whatever. And you're like, Mom, maybe we need to talk about it. And then maybe just after, maybe it takes 5 years, maybe it takes 10 years, but the idea is that we are aiming at a better progressive society, a more inclusive society. We have to improve. To anybody watching, talk and think about what you're saying and doing. And yo, the problems are huge, and there's so many that we need all hands on deck to find solutions to these modern problems. And some of them are old problems, but we need to find new ways to talk about these things. And this little talk, this Plática experiment, is just that. And hopefully we have Spanish talks in the future, and we have other types of people from different walks of life so that we can be as inclusive as possible and lend a voice to people that feel marginalized in our community. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.